This is Israeli Technology Founders Speak, a podcast of conversations with successful Israeli high-tech and biotech entrepreneurs. With your host, Avraham Hermon. Keren Avriel-Sadan is the CEO and co-founder of Yevul Info, an Israeli Agtech startup that helps growers reduce fertilization by 30% while providing early alerts for crop stress using a smart learning algorithm. The system incorporates imaging cameras, fertilizer control injectors, and sophisticated machine learning. Avraham sat down with Keren in the offices of Yevul Info in Katzrin to discuss how Keren came up with the idea, how she got funded, founded a team, the challenges and future of her startup, tips for founders, and much more. This podcast is a creation of J.M.B. Davis Ben David, an intellectual property law firm serving clients around the world. You have great innovations. We keep them safe. It's not enough to just have a great startup idea or innovation. If you don't legally protect your innovations, products, and brand, anyone can claim them as their own. We keep your great innovation secure. Learn more by going to jmbdavis.com. That's jmbdavis.com.
So thank you, Keren, for hosting me and giving me the excuse to visit in northern Israel. And I have to thank the Agtech Israel Global Agricultural Technology Summit for making this interview possible. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and many other companies and industry leaders and government delegates at the summit on October 17th through 19th, 2023. And if any of the listeners out there are interested in attending or finding out more, their website is agritechil.com. So we're going to be talking about Yevul Info today. What problem does Yevul Info solve?
Yevul Info has a primary goal to solve the pain point of the grower. The grower cannot control the fertilizer prices as the fertilizer big companies. So he has a lot of expenses. In USA alone, it's 15% of the whole expense. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the parameters that control the plant growth are so many and so not controlled, like very cold weather, like disease, like pesticides, and so on. So in order to make the crop strong enough, the agronomic protocol includes a lot of extra fertilization. Mm-hmm. This extra fertilization not just cause a lot of expenses to the grower, but it contaminates the soil, the water that it drinks, and our planet, of course. Fertilizers cause to a lot of GHG emissions. We're talking about a sustainable problem to the world, to the planet.
So what you're trying to do is essentially reduce the amount of fertilizer that a farmer will use, but without negatively impacting the yields that the farmer will have.
Of course, we proved that the yield would be the same yield exactly as a crop that's been fertilized 100%.
So what you're saying is you're going to reduce fertilization use and cost to the farmer, maybe even cost to the consumer in the end?
Yeah, I guess I will. But it's more than that. The consumers will have a lot of benefits because our secondary customer is the food company. Mm-hmm. The food company would be able to for a backwards integration for the raw materials in his food. We know that the consumer now look for healthy food, and in that case, the food company can say, we control our raw material because our application can do more than that. We can alert for stress about 2 weeks ahead of time. We are the only one who can do that. We can also predict color, precocity, and the weight of fruits before harvest. Mm-hmm. So the food company is enabled to control the raw material from the starting of the season until the end of the season, until the harvest. In that case, they can say, we have a green product.
Mm-hmm. So that's better for the food companies. They can market a product that's better for the environment, and potentially more customers will buy from them.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit about how it works? How does the system work?
Having a lot of experience with innovation in this agriculture food, and specifically in precision agriculture, and due diligence for a lot of startups in this area, I know what is the market expects. The market has a lot of technologies that are very expensive. Drones, sensors, hyperspectral cameras with very high resolution. We bypass all of that. We bypass the high resolution. We do not have initial setup, so we can advise for RGB cameras. They are staring at the crop on top of the greenhouse, and they watch the crop and take the frames in certain moments, in certain hours. So our algorithm can embed it into all the formulation behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So the algorithm can translate the pixels into formulations, and then they take out of it the crop health.
Mm-hmm.
We know what is the crop health status according to the pictures of the leaves.
I see. Okay, so you have cameras set up around the greenhouses of the growers, and that's providing data that then you somehow manipulate with your algorithm to give input back to the farmer about growing.
Yeah.
And about fertilization and irrigation.
Yeah. If you imagine that you see me for the first time and you don't know what is my status, am I healthy? Maybe I'm ill. Maybe I got fat. Maybe I got thinner. But you don't know because you see me for first. Due to the fact that I invented a mechanism that can understand the growth habits of the crop, I know in advance what is the status before you see it in your eye.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So it can be still green and looks very healthy, but I can tell you, no, this leaf is going to be yellow in 2 weeks from now because I see that it's not healthy.
So you mentioned that you're an inventor. You invented this. Can you explain a little bit about how the idea was born?
The algorithm CTO, Ezra Miller, he thought about an idea while studying in the agriculture faculty in Israel. He thought about an idea, how can he bypass all these technologies out there? He thought about what would be the right solution for agriculture techniques to understand the crop health in another way and not the common way that they are today. The common ways that they are using today are samples from the soils, samples from sensors, samples from drones. I mean, all these samples that are taken make it very complicated to understand each place of the plot. I know how to bypass all of that. I can put only one camera above and I can bypass all these samples with the complication is behind the scene. The complication is in our algorithm, which has a lot of mathematical and physics formulations.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we thought about it. And he found a way and met and suggested our agronomist, Yochai, that he has a way to develop it. And this is how it started.
So you mentioned you have 2 other partners. Can you talk a little bit about how to assemble a team and how you did that? And was that difficult, that process?
I think that what the most important thing for me, that I would have very experienced team, very professional team. I'm not looking for, a young person that know how to program an application and he came just out of the garage. I'm looking for a very experienced team that knows what the market needs, that works in this market and understands the pain points of this market. So this is the team I assembled. And in addition to that, I recruit a product manager that actually emphasize exactly what we need for our final product.
I know you have industry experience in a large chemical company known as ICL. How is that experience helpful for you to start the startup?
After almost a decade in ICL, establishing with the CTO for the first time the global function of ICL about 11 years ago. So I evaluated a lot of startups in this field. I worked with the strategy manager of ICL in order to learn deeply all the trends in the precision agriculture field, and we understood what happens in the market and all the available technologies. We saw what our competitors did in this area, and then we figured out what's missing for us. When I evaluate all these startups out there, it was very difficult for me to find out the right business model that I can say, yes, it's gonna work. Because according to what I saw, I felt like, you're having a surgery, so the surgery succeeded, but the patient died. So it's not enough to have a good technology. You should have the right business model in order to sell it.
Right.
With Yevul Info, I just found the game changer with the business model, because you don't have initial setup, it's not expensive, therefore the ROI, it's immediately.
I see.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I shared a similar role looking from when I was in a large company in pharmaceuticals, looking at a lot of new projects coming in to the company, and it gave me insight about how a company needs to develop, not only in terms of intellectual property, which is my field, but also how it really needs to position itself to get to the market. So that I think is extremely useful. Let's talk a little bit about patents and intellectual property, and how does that play into your business strategy?
Yeah. So this year we filed 2 patents regarding our mechanism of how we understand the leaves or the crops' health while staring, picturing its foliage.
Mm-hmm.
So the patents, of course, are going to save us from the next technologies that is out there and maybe thinking about the same solution. We found out that this is very important in order to go to the market, and especially before we go to participate in this kind of conference.
So you made sure to secure your intellectual property before presenting it and before going to conferences and talking to people about it.
Yeah.
What about intellectual property and investors? How do they view intellectual property?
They understand that it's the most important thing. We actually went into a professional R&D institution in order to prove our technology for 100% and to get, the stamp of that institution. So right now, after a very successful experiments, we are ready to do it. They are sure that this is so important to them, and we are ready for that.
Let's talk a little bit about investment. What sort of investment do you have to date? And maybe talk a little bit about bootstrapping versus receiving outside investment.
So we applied for the Israeli Innovation Authority in order to participate in the greenhouses program. So we received investment of 3 million shekels, but the Israel Authority, they invested 85% out of that, and our shareholders of these greenhouses, Galil Ofek Innovation in Katzrin, they invested the 15% additional, and they, of course, promised us that because they believed in us so much, so they are going to participate in the next round.
That sounds like a good resource to have. In addition to investment, what sorts of input are they providing for you, for your startup?
So it's very important because our shareholders have lots of connections in the global market. So they help us with connection in Dubai, in China, in Europe. In addition to that, and the most important thing, my head of director, Avraham, is like a mentor for me. He helps to work with external investors, prepare me to the pitches, and help me to get to them.
You're solving a problem that has to do with food and sustainability, and these are problems that exist today and have existed for the last number of years. And what's your thought about investors now in the ag tech space? Are they hesitant to invest?
I think that it's a well-known fact that we are in a period that investments are very difficult to receive. A lot of due diligence or a lot of agreements that were almost signed, they were, exploited at the last moment. Mm-hmm. Money is problematic in all of the ecosystem, but especially now in Israel with all the political situation. So investors are a little bit afraid to put money in this market. So unfortunately, I see lots of startups or entrepreneurs go and look for external investments abroad with the option of establishing a company abroad, which is very sad for the Israeli ecosystem.
Well, so why do you think that it's important that startups be here in Israel?
Because we as the southern nation, because maybe I'm a Zionist, I don't know, but I think that we should stay and we should stick to our very analytic capabilities. Again, we are the startup nation. We have a lot of high-techs, great brains, and we should keep them here. And we should still maintain the reputation of our country. This is a very little country, but we have a lot of accomplishment, and we should continue and emphasize that.
Let's talk a little bit about software as a service, which is the model that you chose for Yevul Info. How do you think that this technology will help the user in the end?
I think that this is the most important thing here, because when I think about the grower, about the end user, I want to simplify his life. I know that he doesn't like a lot of complexity. He has enough on his hand. He has to get up early and he has to work very hard. He doesn't need to be added with complex technology and cameras and sensors and the maintenance and etc. He has to sleep well at night, understand that his yield would be optimized, and he's going to get simple alerts and of feedback of the health of these crops. So in order to do that, I am going to use an application which he would download from the farm management platform, and therefore he just have to push a button and, enter the connection to the camera, and then he'll get feedback of alerts, like something happens. The crop looks not healthy. And this is the alert that we were talking about, that is going to be enough time ahead. So he's going to receive like a
an alarm, right?
Like an alarm, ahead of time. So he should be immediately add fertilizers or check if he has to check for disease.
Now let's switch gears a little bit. What tips do you have for founders who are starting their own company with their new idea?
I think that the most important thing is that when you are a very thin company and you don't have enough money, so the founders, they should be very complementary to each other. I mean, everyone should be very professional in his field, and they must work together. They must consult with each other, and for each step that they are doing, they should not be the CEO of this startup. They should do what they know best, and they should bring the CEO that he would lead them, that he would focus them, and he would be busy with business plans, investors, funding.
I see. So everyone needs to know their own role and focus on that role.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like a good tip. Now, where do you see Yevul Info in another year or another 5 years from now?
Wow, I have a lot of dreams. In a year, let's say in the end of 24, I want to be with product in the markets already. I want to sell. In 5 years, I want a big company. It's surprising, maybe. I'm not talking about exits and like a lot of entrepreneurs. But for me, I see a big company that is very successful with global sales. I want to see our products used in farm management platforms and with food companies that want to control the raw materials.
That sounds very good and promising. And I hope that you have continued success. And hopefully we'll talk in another few years and you will have achieved those goals.
Amen.
That was Keren Avriel-Sadan, the CEO and co-founder of Yevul Info. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode.